Welcome everyone to the January 24th regular meeting of Walpole Select Board. It's now 7 o'clock, or a little after, and I call the meeting to order. Let's stand and recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wanted to take a moment at the beginning of tonight's meeting to acknowledge and recognize the passing of Cliff Snuffer. Many of you know Cliff has been ill for some time. He's fought a courageous and dignified fight, and he passed away yesterday, sadly. And so wanted to make sure that we recognize that. As I think you all know, Cliff is an institution in the town of Walpole. Been around here forever, has been involved in many things. He was a member of this board, elected twice. He served as chair for a year as well. And we're very grateful for his service and, the kindred spirit that we share as select board members. But beyond that, Cliff was also an RTM for 36 years. And he had I don't know if anyone else has this, but he actually covered 4 different precincts during those 36 years. Precinct 2, Precinct 4, Precinct 5, and Precinct 6, which is really something. And of course, those of us who go to town meeting and participate in town meeting know Cliff is the great orator at town meeting and the great parliamentarian as well. And certainly his voice will be missed at town meeting. He was also a member of the Finance Committee. He was on the Cable Television Advisory Committee. He was on the Capital Budget Committee. He served as an advisor to the Soccer Committee, which, if I'm not mistaken, was the committee that led the way to the development of the fields at Mylod Street, the soccer fields at Mylod Street, which have been so important to the town for many years. He was also a member of the Isaacs Land Study Committee. This is the committee that was formed to evaluate a proposal to purchase the Adams Farm. And of course, that proposal was successfully passed, and the town has owned the farm now for 25 years. We just celebrated the 25th anniversary. And that's one of Cliff's lasting legacies, of course, is the purchase of the Adams Farm. He was on the Growth Control Committee, and as I mentioned, he was on the Select Board on 2 different occasions. He was involved in many other town projects and initiatives, notably the South Walpole Center, which is another big legacy for Cliff and something that was very important to him. He was very proud of the work that was done at the South Walpole Center, and of course he was very active with the seniors. So Cliff is an institution in town, and for those of us who got to serve with him, we know him well. I had the opportunity to speak with Cliff over the last several months on several occasions as he went through his fight, and it was a courageous fight. I was always so pleased to hear his voice. It was always strong, and he was dignified. He understood the fight he was up against, but nonetheless, he bravely fought it. I spoke with him for the last time just the other day, 6 days ago. He was getting ready to go home. He was in the hospital and getting ready to go home, and the one thing he wanted was to be home with his family. As I talked to Cliff over those many occasions, and I'm sure you all know this, one of the things that comes clear is, all town things aside, the most important thing to Cliff was family. He was a father, he was a grandfather, he was a great-grandfather, and he had quite a number of children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all surrounding him. And it was something that made him very happy, and something that he drew great strength from. And so it was always nice to hear about, the things that were going on in the family and how much it meant to Cliff as he went through these several months. And frankly, it's his lasting legacy. The farm is one, senior center is another, but the family, the kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, that's the lasting legacy. So our condolences go out to the Snuffer family, and we wish them our thoughts and prayers and best during this difficult time. And rest in peace, Cliff Snuffer. I'd like to have everyone stand and have just a moment of silence for Cliff, if we could, please. Thank you. Our first order of business is we have the superintendent from the Tri-County Regional Voc Tech High School, Karen McGuire, here to talk to us tonight about a proposal to build a new regional high school for Tri-County. I'm sure Karen will go into this, but Tri-County serves, I believe, it's 9 towns, if I'm not mistaken. 11 towns, I'm sorry. 11 towns across 3 counties providing voc tech training to many students, and Walpole takes part in that as a member of the Tri-County. And so it's something that's important to the students at Tri-County and obviously to you, Karen, and we look forward to the discussion tonight. What I'd like to do is have you just take us through whatever presentation you have, and then we'll have some discussion among the board members and go from there, okay?
Perfect. All right, perfect. And I have Dan Haynes with me as well. He has a couple of slides in this presentation as well. Dan is our school business manager. And also tonight, our 2 Walpole representatives. Tri-County is 11 communities made into 1 school. And 3 of those 11 communities have 2 members on our school committee, and Walpole is one of those communities. So tonight we have Mr. Sullivan here with us, and our newest representative, Mr. Lee, both on the Tri-County School Committee. When you talk about, I'm sorry for your loss. Yeah, you know, you talk about the depth of involvement of the people in Walpole, and it reminds me of Mr. Hegler, you know, who we have as the member of our school committee since the school was built. And I wish I had brought it with me, but I have a picture of Mr. Hegler back in 1973. He had climbed the hill to where Tri-County is now built, and they took a photo of the gentleman that really kind of incorporated where the school would be, and he had a cigarette behind his back in the photo that was in the newspaper, but he had kind of hidden the cigarette because he didn't want everybody to know that they got up to the top of the hill in 1973 and smoked a cigarette where the school is. So. But yeah, he talks about that. But at any rate, Tri-County, we've been around for a long time. The regional vocational schools, there are 26 of them in the state of Massachusetts, and Tri-County is one of them. They were all built roughly in the same 10-year time frame, 10 or 12-year time frame. Tri-County, again, makes up the 11 communities: Franklin, Medfield, Medway, Millis, Norfolk, North Attleboro, Plainville, Sherburne, Walpole, and Rentham, and then Seekonk. We refer to Seekonk as Hawaii because it's disconnected. It looks like it's only out there by water. But together, those 11 communities make up 1,000 students at the Tri-County Regional School District. And they were part of the incorporating agreement back close to 50 years ago. So in about 2017, Tri-County entered into the application process through the MSBA, which I know you're all aware of what the MSBA is, so I won't get into all of that. But generally, it takes a few attempts at becoming part of the MSBA pipeline. And in 2019, Tri-County was the final application that they put in, and they were invited in to the process for the core renovation project. So as part of that, it's an 8-step process, as you know. The first part, the eligibility, which I just spoke of, and then the second piece was that Tri-County, it was right when I was hired, which was just a little over a year ago. Tri-County, we selected the OPM and then entered into the feasibility study of the project, which lasted until just recently. And during that process, we had to identify 3 different scenarios of what we would do with the building, whether it be a remodel with an addition, or a full brand new building on the site of Tri-County where it's currently built. As part of the, some other towns have asked us about this, but as part of the district agreement, we do need to stay in Franklin. It is one of the things that is part of the school district agreement. So where we are right now is right kind of in the middle there where that step 4 is, where it says schematic design. And then the rest of the project will take place, hopefully, over the next couple of years. So again, moving in right now from the feasibility study, where we did the visioning sessions with our staff and looked at the existing conditions, and then went through the range of options, looked at the alternatives, and then at the end of December, we submitted the design proposal for the preferred schematic design proposal to the MSBA for a brand new building as opposed to a remodel or a remodel with an addition. And we're entering into that schematic design phase now, where more in-depth we'll get into what that project would look like and what the actual real costs would be to our communities. Again, this is just sort of an overview timeline where we're right kind of in this 2023. The process of building the building would take place over the next couple of years, and then in the 2027 into 28 year would be when the financing would happen with the towns. So again, we're here, trying to bring everybody into the conversation as early as we can now that we know what we're doing. Those are some of the key dates. We submitted in August down to the 3rd. In August, we brought the concepts down from like 11 down to 3, and then at the end of December submitted 1, and then again now until June we'll do the final edits to the proposal to see what it will really look like and how much it will end up being at the end. So for rough, these are called order of magnitude prices. These are not the exact, we're not at a place now, we won't be until June, maybe into July, for what the actual real cost of the building project, but for the time being, we have what are called order of magnitude costs. The top one, the base repair, what that means is if we were to do nothing, if we were to not entertain the notion of going through the MSBA, if the vote were to be not go through with our towns, and we have to just repair the building as is, that's the order of magnitude cost, that $165 million over 10 years to fix the things that are wrong with the building. One of the big things with the building, as old as Tri-County is it's not to code, naturally, with a lot of the things like the fire and some of the electrical and some of the handicap accessibility and so forth. It's not to code with any of that. So as you know, if you start getting into repairing this and repairing that, once you hit a certain threshold, you're bound to bring the building to code. And that's where we run into trouble with getting into that $165 million range. One of the options that we looked at was a renovation, just to take the property as we have it now, leave it alone, and just do a renovation to it. And the cost for that, order of magnitude cost that we have for that is the $279 million. It's awful hard to retrofit a building such as what we have that was built in the early 70s with what the technology is today. A renovation with an addition at the end of it to give us some more instructional space is $282 million. And then the new construction option, which would happen behind where our current building is $279 again. So it's roughly the same as it would have been to renovate. We were surprised at that, I'm going to be honest with you. When I was hired a year ago, the talk was that we were going to do a renovation. And I was hired because I come from districts where we've done renovations while kids are in them. And it's not an easy thing to do, but it happens to be my background. So that was one of the reasons why when I interviewed at Tri-County, they liked that I had that experience, because again, it's a little bit of a dance to try to keep education going while you're building the building around them. We were surprised to see when it all came out in the wash that we were talking about a new building at roughly the same amount. So this is an overview. If you look at the screen, you can see the overview of what Tri-County looks like. It's kind of a long building with 2 wings. Those 2 wings are where the vocational programs are, the hard shops we call them, like carpentry, HVAC, plumbing, and so forth, automotive. Some of the other programs are up on the top, the like the medical and health programs. If you look at that yellow line, you can distinguish that's the property line to Tri-County, and within that footprint, we were trying to figure out how we would address the space needs of the future building. And the option that we went with, in order to try to keep the building away from the neighbors as much as we could, because we are trying to be a good neighbor and not be right on someone's backyard, is to put the building with a solar. If you look back and see around that's the solar area. So up to the top of the screen, that new building would replace where the solar panels are now. Would have to relocate them throughout the property and then build the building in that area. That's the current proposal that we have. So for all intents and purposes, it's laid out in a grid form, just a rectangle with a courtyard in the middle. The hard bay shops would be down on the first level, with instructional classroom spaces across the hall so that we could do more in-depth cross-curriculum work with the students. And that's, the second floor would be, again, the lighter shops, health and medical and so forth, with the same sort of concept. New gymnasium, auditorium, and so forth. And then there'd be this sort of floating third floor for additional classroom spaces. So we'd be taking that really 1-story to 2-story long building with wings and incorporating it into a more compact 2 to 3-story building on the property. So some of the important dates to tell you about, we've had a couple of community presentations. We've put them up on our website just for interested people in the community that want to come to hear about the project. We'll be having more of these now that we know. Those presentations, we talked about what we thought we might do and talked to the community about the 3 potential choices that we had. Because Tri-County, again, is a regional school, the approval process for the building is a little different than what people are used to. It's what's called a regional vote. So in essence, what happens is on the same day, at the same time, all 11 communities would hold an election where the residents come to their towns to vote, whether they're in favor of the project or not in favor of the project. That is a little different. It's not something that most of the towns have ever seen in the time that they've been in office or that their clerks have been as town clerk. So we did have an information session for them in December 8th, I believe, where we explained how that process works and for them to try to narrow down what they thought would be a good date for all 11 to be able to have the vote. We also have had a number of joint school committee meetings with our school committee and the school building committee meeting, and some meetings with the town of Franklin, because naturally, with all of the code and everything, we need to include them. And then at the end of June, we anticipate getting the preliminary schematic design report to the MSBA, and then would have it back from them with the actual real cost of, and the real budget of what we would be committing to for the building project. The whole thing, we expect to go out to vote in October to the communities. The town clerks have tentatively agreed on October 24th as the date for that election. They've yet to determine whether or not it would be by law that vote has to be anywhere between 4 and 8 hours. That's the way that 16N works. So the clerks would have to determine among them, and then would come back out and let everybody know, make sure that we're all in agreement for how long those voting hours would be for. And then Dan's going to come up and talk to this piece.
Thank you. It's great to be here in Walpole with you and to continue this conversation around the new school. So as Karen mentioned, that we're going to vote this under Chapter 7116N. It's a simple majority vote amongst the voters that turn out on that day. The debt issue will be a 30-year bond. Debt repayment is based on October 1st enrollment of the preceding year. That's how our current operating budget and capital budget works. There's an assumed 5-pupil minimum in our district agreement. That doesn't apply to Walpole, but that does apply to Sherburne, who currently only has 1 student in the district. And this is a little small, but these are the 11 communities, and this is the enrollment October 1st, 2022 compared to October 1st, 2021. Walpole has 6 additional students at the school. And this October 1st, 22 will be the numbers used to generate the 24 budget, upcoming 24 budget.
Just a note on that, so we have the 3rd highest enrollment at the school, right? I believe my numbers are right.
So we have Franklin, so we have North Attleboro, Franklin, and then Plainville, and then Walpole.
Right, 4th, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, Plainville had a significant increase in their student population this year, along with Medway.
So, and that's, I think, the end of our slide deck, so we'll be happy to take your questions.
Great. Well, thank you for taking us through that. I have a few questions, and I'll start out with asking some of them, but I don't want to open it up to the rest of the board. One of the challenges that we have here is, while wanting to be supportive of Tri-County and the mission of Tri-County, and Walpole always has been and will continue to be, this is a big project, and it comes with it a very big price tag, and that big price tag is going to compete with other projects that we've got going on, not the least of which is we just passed a very large override for a middle school here in Walpole, which we're grateful to the voters for doing, but it's put a burden on the taxpayers. So there's a reality to the situation here that, I'm frankly struggling with, because I want to be supportive of what you're trying to do. I think it's important to your mission. At the same time, it's coming at a very, very difficult time for us. So I'll be interested to hear the other board members' thoughts on that and how you might think about it. To get more specific, though, I'm interested in knowing what the cost to the town, to all the towns, but of course Walpole, to the taxpayers of Walpole would be, and how those costs then translate into, average impact or an impact to the average taxpayer here in Walpole. That helps us to set a context around the ask and what it means to the taxpayers here in Walpole.
Yeah.
So I'd be interested in seeing that. I don't know if you have those numbers handy tonight.
Yeah, so just again, we'll know for real, really, later in the spring, and we'll come back with that, So, but Dan, I think we'll talk a little bit about if it were, just sort of play out some numbers on the back of the envelope.
Yeah, just driving off the $280 million price, what if it were $280 million, which is the best number you have right now,
Yeah.
what does that look like?
So if the project is $280 million when we go through schematic design, we would borrow at this point probably around $200 million. The impact to Walpole would probably be, $1,145,000 per year for 30 years.
So the MSBA does reimburse, and this has been an ongoing thing that we have. We're a vocational school. The MSBA has templates, if you will, for how they calculate elementary school construction, how they calculate primary school, how they calculate high schools, but they don't have one for vocational schools. There have only been 2 vocational schools completely rebuilt, brand new buildings. One of them was Minuteman. The other one is Cape Tech, which is currently built down in Harwich, that area. They're all around the same age. Right now, there are 9, with 2 more coming in, so that will be 11 in the MSBA pipeline currently. There are a couple that are a little bit ahead of us. We have Bristol Plymouth is a year or so ahead of us. They haven't broken ground, but they're in the same situation where everybody's trying to figure out where you're going to get the money, right? Diamond is a year ahead of us, which is in Fall River. And then Northeast Metro Tech, which is up on the North Shore, Chelsea in that area. And then behind us, South Shore Votech, which is in Hanover, 7 communities there, and Old Colony, which is in Rochester, which is 6 communities but only 500 kids. So that one, because we're 1,000 kids, that's 500 kids. They're anticipating their building being closer to 350 to 400 million because of the way it's scoped out. So it is a big ask for all of the communities, and we've had these conversations, and we're not immune to knowing that. We're not sticking our head in the sand saying, "Woof, what are you talking about?" We're not doing that at all, and we are trying to find ways to be able to work together to try to help people come up with ways to be able to offset that cost. And we need a community to do it, and I'll use an example. We had last year, we had proposed some legislation last year. Again, I've only been there a year, and Mr. Scanlon, who's a new rep down in North Attleboro, I was on the job for a week, and he came in, and we had a conversation, and then we were able to draft some pretty good legislation to try to do some things with the MSBA Board of Directors to try to address vocational school reimbursement. They have a board of directors of 17 people. Not one is a vocational person. In fact, when we went through our approval process and then even met with them last week, they're calling us tech voc. The concept's just beyond what they have in front of them. So we're advocating for adding 2 people onto the MSBA Board of Directors so that we can weigh in on the conversation, especially about reimbursement. We're also asking if, and we have some current legislation, unfortunately last year we ran out of time with the legislation. They timed out. If you remember, everybody went home for the summer and then we re-elected. And now people are back in business and we have 2 new bills that have just been filed. In fact, Senator Feeney actually filed one for us, and Representative Scanlon and Marcus Vaughn, the newest rep here from Norfolk, just signed on to it today. I'll give you those numbers, you can look them up, but they both talk about funding vocational school projects, regional vocational school projects. We're asking for them to allocate $3 billion for these projects so that we can divide it up to help offset. Walpole's not alone in having other municipal buildings happening at the same time. It's just the fact of what's going on. Everybody's building schools, and these schools are all timing out at the same time. Those schools that I talked about that are in the MSBA pipeline impact 119 communities. So if we can get those 119 communities to reach out to their legislators and say, hey, support these bills, because that will help offset our cost, then maybe we can get somewhere.
Well, I can tell you, we would be more than happy to participate in that. And we're in the, I think, enviable position of being represented by 4 state reps across Walpole, plus Mike Rush, who's our state senator.
Right.
Paul Feeney was our state senator. We know Paul well, and he's a good man and has helped us enormously. So we would be more than willing to jump on to anything you got going on there with those 119 communities to help drive that.
Right.
Because I think it's going to take something like that to make this cost more doable at the local level. And yet it's as I said in my opening remarks, it's one of those, you want to be supportive. It's a very important thing you're doing, but how do we find the right balance? So I'm quite sure that we as a board would be willing to get behind that ask, and I think you just need to let us know more about what we need to specifically do, and we'll go ahead and do that, okay? That's one thing. The other thing that I'm wondering about is, and I don't really know enough about the millionaire's tax that just got passed, but there's the new millionaire's tax, and I thought a lot of that money was to be set aside for education, and I'm wondering if any of that could get picked up in this. And I'm also understanding that there are ARPA funds available at the state level that haven't been allocated yet, and I wonder if we should be pushing on that as well. I think we need to have a concerted effort here to figure out how best to fund this, because otherwise it's a precarious position that you're putting us in.
Yeah, for sure. So these bills, I can just leave you this copy. One's through the Senate, the other's through the House, and they do speak about tapping into that millionaire's tax to help offset that $3 billion that is being asked for these projects.
Yeah.
So, and they're new. They just filed on the 20th. So they're only 4 days old. so don't be a little off-put by the only 2 or 3 names on them. They were just literally just filed. So,
Okay.
And then what'll happen at this point? I'm working with the Mass Association of Vocational Administrators, and that's the group that we've been meeting and coming up with these concepts, and then reaching out through a lobbyist to the legislature to see what we can get going. But I will have sample letters for you and send things along that will hopefully help push the.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's really helpful. So let's do some follow-up on that. I have one more question before I open it up to the broader board. So I'm curious as to the process itself of the 11 towns coming together and taking a vote, and what does yes look like, and how do you get to yes? And for any town that doesn't vote yes, what does it mean to that town or those towns?
Right, because it is not a town-by-town vote, it's a regional vote. So it's yes, it's 50% plus 1 of the collective group that votes. So it's not Walpole says yes, Sherburne says no, it's not that at all. It's of all of the community members from the 11 towns that come out to vote, it's 50% plus 1 of that group collectively.
Okay. And does that translate into a tax override?
So how the towns would handle the debt is up to the towns exclusively. Sherburne, it's not on the ballot that way. It's just simply, do you approve the building project, yes or no? And then, if it's approved, then the towns would determine how they would handle it, whether they go back to the voters for an exclusion or an override, or whether they want to find it in their budget. Like Dan pointed out, Sherburne has they'll have 3 students next year, but they're still compelled for the 5. They certainly wouldn't want to, I'm speaking for them like I know the town of Sherburne's ins and outs, but I'm just assuming that they wouldn't go out for an election for an override or an exclusion for 5 students.
Right.
Where North Attleboro is in a much different situation with 164 students, 237 students. You know, so that's a bigger conversation for them.
So it's, either way, it's a difficult situation. Override means an impact to the taxpayers. That's got a lot of downside to it. No override, but a yes vote, town, now you got to go find the money, $1,150,000 a year. It's a lot of money to suddenly have to come up with. And back to my earlier point about competing priorities, that's where we have a real struggle here. So, but anyway, thank you for clarifying that. That was helpful. So let me open it up to the broader board. Who'd like to go first? Glenn?
I'll jump in, sure. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Yeah, like Jim said, it's a big ask, and I think we generally do support Tri-County in your effort to move forward and doing something with your school. And you clearly have decided that a remodel and a base remodel is not going to be that thing. The remodel and the addition seems like the price tag is very similar to a new addition. New construction. So I do understand all that. I think, you know, and I have my thumb here bookmarked on the price tag, the preliminary pricing table. So I think I kind of want to zero in on that. And I'm sure you've thought a lot about this, but I kind of want to get a sense of if that number can be lower. And you know, if it's $280 million, if we can get it down in any way. So I guess some of my questions are, you know, are you growing the school? Are you building a school for 900 students, or for anticipating someday it's going to be 1,100 students? So I kind of want to ask some questions around square footage and whether new programming is being introduced, or whether you're eliminating sort of obsolete programming, and sort of if you've had what the thought process is around some of those questions.
Yeah, so we actually have a process that we go through regularly to evaluate programs, to make sure that they're meeting market demands, to make sure that they're relevant. You know, for instance, we had a collision repair program that was a standalone program, but with the way the auto body industry works now, we were able to fold the collision repair program into the automotive program as a part of it, rather than its own program.
Okay.
So we're constantly in that sort of a mindset.
Okay.
We also work with our local, there are 3 of them, work advisory boards in this area to indicate which industry is the most up-and-coming industry that we need to train students for. One that's coming to mind right now is cybersecurity. Although it's not enough to have its own program right now, we're adding cybersecurity as part of our engineering, as part of our computer information technology, and our criminal justice programs. But we're not building for any more than what we have right now. So that's another question that each board asks us. Are we expanding Tri-County? No, we're 1,000 students, and will remain 1,000 students with the new building. It's proposed at the same. One of the things the MSBA does ask us to do is come up with a plan that if we needed to expand the building, how would we do that? But we're just filling that report as a requirement of theirs, not because we anticipate adding additional seats, if you will. Yeah.
Okay, so I just an idea I had related to the 30-year borrowing. You know, in Walpole, I think it would make sense for us. You know, we building this middle school, borrowing for 30 years makes sense for us because we have 4 elementary schools and a middle school and a high school. So we have other projects and we have other things that we need to deal with in town beyond just the schools. And so a 30-year borrowing makes sense for us, but I wonder if a 40-year borrowing would make sense in your case, because you don't have anything else to build over the next 40 years. And so if you could stretch it out over a longer timeline, that would lessen the burden on communities. Have you thought about that?
I think we may statutorily be with the 30-year.
I didn't know that.
The state caps it, I believe. We looked into it too.
Okay. That's too bad.
Yeah, it's like years ago you could only do a 3-year, lease on your or payment on your car. Now I think you can go up to like 8.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
You understand what I'm getting at. I'm just looking to get that number down.
Sure, yeah,
Whether it's the
absolutely.
$1.145 million, which is your current estimate per year that we have to find in Walpole in our budget, you know, and how do you get that 1.145 million down as you start with the $280 million? And I haven't looked closely enough at this. This is the first time I'm hearing this presentation. So I'm turning to you and I'm asking you kind of what are some areas that could be cut? You know, and if you haven't looked closely at that, or if you don't have any ideas now, I would ask that. I mean, that's one of my questions. is-
Yeah, so no, we have looked at that. So we continue to look at that. In fact, we just met with the MSBA Thursday afternoon. We had a meeting with them about reimbursement and what's reimbursable, what's not reimbursable, trying to even get them to increase the reimbursable piece of our library. They only wanted to reimburse it based on 500 students because their position was that only half the building uses it if the other kids are in VOTEC programs, which is not the way that our VOTEC school works at all. The same thing with the gym. You know, they only want to reimburse for half of the gym because only half the kids would, but that's not the way it works for us. It might work that way for the school that they had 2 years ago, but that's not the way Tri-County operates. So we're constantly doing that piece of it. The other piece is that we're lobbying for more reimbursement for something like technology. Right now, they cap technology at something like $360 per student. So when our cost for technology exceeds that by far because of the type of programming we have. And that's what I mean by they don't have a template for us. So we're constantly going back and kind of hitting them with, look at, it's different for us. You need to really look at what our calculation is because it's a different animal altogether.
I appreciate you doing that. Is there anything in this proposal that is entirely unreimbursable by MSBA?
So things like the superintendent's office, the square footage for that, because in regular comprehensive districts, the superintendent's office is usually in a different building or in
Okay.
the town hall.
Yeah.
So those kinds
Any
of things.
big ticket items? An auditorium, for example? Or
I know it's reimbursable, so we're able to, but we'll just keep working at what we do. But we have to remember that we're there to educate the kids, and we want to make sure that when we're bound by law, especially with everything now, with all of the requirements for competency determination for kids, we have.
I don't want to
offer
send the message
same
that I'm
thing,
not
but-
supportive of educating the kids. I am, and I'm supportive of doing it the right way and the best way, but not necessarily the way that spends the most money either. So it's really that conversation happens in parallel with educating the kids and again, looking for ways to do it in an economically, feasible way.
Right.
So.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I do. I'm a taxpayer too. And that Carver that Old Colony building's going to be mine, so I get it. Yeah.
Sure. I'm all set for now.
Thanks, Glenn. Anyone else?
Yeah, I certainly think Walpole's students having access to Tri-County is very important. I think students in Walpole have choices for their high school and what best suits their needs. So I do support our vocational schools, and the price tag, I think, and everyone is going to say that is very difficult. Finding $1 million plus in our budget, I think you were saying maybe 2027. That will be a challenge for the town and for the other 11 communities. Can you tell me a little bit more about your student population, the process, and in this bill, certainly the codes of fire, electrical, ADA compliance, and things like that, and how are you servicing the students with special needs? And vocational, I can't really begin to understand what you need exactly in all those different programs, but the classroom spaces and how things change of the cost for a new building, and then secondary, what happens if this doesn't pass?
Yeah, so as far as the student makeup, there's a couple of questions there. So as far as the student makeup, Tri-County, again, is 1,000 students. We're about 34% special ed students. And we're an increasing population of Hispanic students and students of color. Just because of the geographic location and where we are, those populations are increasing. However, Tri-County's always been in that 30%, 35% special ed student population. So, and we do a great job with helping our students come into Tri-County as ninth graders, get training that they need, and then get out to work. It's a great training facility for the workforce, and it's a remarkable facility. If you haven't been there, I encourage you to come, and I'll give you a tour, and you can see the programs and see the kids in action, and it's really a great program. The students are there for, just like every other high school, they come in the morning, and we run on a week basis, so the students will come in if they're in grade 9 and grade 11. They may be in their vocational program for the week, while grades 10 and 12 are in academic programming for a week. And then the next week that flips. And they continue to do that for the 4 years while they're there. Halfway through their junior year, they have the ability to go out into work during their vocational week in their vocational program rather than come to the school and take the training there. Some of the kids take advantage of that. Some of them don't, and then the senior year they could also do the same. What it looks like their freshman year, the students come in their freshman year and they take every one of the vocational programs for one day, so that they may not know a thing about plumbing. They might think that they want to be a hairdresser, but they come and they have to take every one of those programs for one day, and then they narrow it down to their top 5, which they do for a week, and after that they choose which one they would like for the rest of the time that they're there. That's how the programming works. Do they stick to that? I don't know. They're kids. They change their mind after a little while sometimes, but we work with that as well. But that's in a nutshell how it works. As far as our ADA, we have ramps. We thought we were okay, but the pitch of this and the door spaces certainly are not up to what the code needs to be. There's a lot of work that needs to be done in that building to bring the building to code. Answer your question about what we would do, there are definitely repairs to that building that would have to be made immediately in order for us to stay in it. But over time, that's where that top non-reimbursable piece comes in that we would have to go through. And it would also go back into the MSBA pipeline and try the whole thing all over again.
And what if it fails?
Well, that's exactly, they said, what if it fails? And you're saying that there's certain renovations that are still going to be, the 11 communities will be responsible for.
Yes, so that's the way that, right. So to answer your question about how that works is it goes back to the towns as a capital if it rises to that level expense.
And that then would not be as a vote if it was more small chunks.
It would be either part of our budget proposal or it would have to come back for a special assessment, yeah.
So on our end, I believe what we would do would just be more or less a pass-through. They'd pass a budget of whatever, $1.4 million to Walpole, to an additional $200,000 assessment on there or something like that. I think they've done that when the
Yes,
previous
Bill, yeah.
superintendent was there. I remember seeing something on there, so it would just be part of our bill.
So in our annual cost, you talked about the enrollment, so that kind of continues even with this this commitment and it passes to the new building. It's still kind of based on student population and per student costs?
That's right, yeah. So the students' tuition, if you will, is it fluctuates depending on how many you have. Yeah.
All set, Ally?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Okay, great. So thank you for all this information, and I know that you're giving this to us now, but I think really what the select board, or the way I see the select board functioning in this, is really as a conduit to the residents, because we're not going to be voting on or deciding anything in this board. It's going to be the residents who are deciding it. So to the extent that you give us information and we can pass it out to the town and the residents at large, I think that would be beneficial not only to us, but also for you.
Right.
So the more information we get and packages and presentations, the more we can give to residents as well. And having gone through the MSBA process for middle school, which we are currently in, just finalizing our GMP agreement with the contractor, we've been through the vote, we've been through all that process. The pain of cuts, looking at a project, understanding what's not reimbursable, having to remove it from the project, we're all very familiar with that. And so I think that goes a little bit to what Glenn was saying insofar as we had to make some really tough decisions. And sure, we would have liked to have $30 million more in our school, but we couldn't. And we had to take that out. And so I think that's the real hard look at the valuation of, or this initial look. I know it's only a schematic level. But in terms of residents, they know that we're building a $100 million middle school. And so, of course, it's a middle school, this is a high school, and it's a different type of school. But comparing in a resident's mind, thinking, oh, well, we're building 100 million and this is almost 3 times as much. Maybe you could just briefly, because we've been on this for a bit here, briefly give more background into what might be driving that.
Yeah, so it costs categorically more to build the type of facility
Yeah.
as a vocational technical training facility than a comprehensive elementary school. It just, the shop costs, for the vocational programs alone, combined with the equipment that needs to some of it we can move, but not all of it. In fact, the other piece is again, the technology piece of it, where probably 3 times as much, and they still would only reimburse at what the elementary school piece would be.
Right.
And it just, the list goes on and on for those types of things. But just the sheer nature of the business of the vocational school is a much different animal, and it really should be looked at from the state level at a higher reimbursement. And that's just my opinion for the 5th time, because it just is, and that's in the legislation as well. That there be a higher reimbursement for these types of projects. They were built on a land grant 50 years ago. The federal government and state got together and built them. And over that time, the citizens of each of the towns throughout the Commonwealth have used them, not really putting $10 a month away, for the Tri-County or for the whichever project. And now we're in this situation where the building's broken, yeah, and we need to do something. But I'll leave you with the legislation pieces, and you can look them over and see what you think, and it would be, I think, very helpful, yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't sound like, it sounds like fitting a square peg in a round hole. I don't know why this building would be expected to meet the reimbursement requirements of a different type of school. So it just doesn't seem applicable, and I think that's unfortunate. And we've also had a lot of experience with the legislature in trying to, I guess, make some of the processes at the municipal level more efficient, and we have been, very disappointed almost every time. So I don't really put a lot of faith in their ability to take a program in the MSBA that's for public schools at a say a plain school and be able to apply it to a vocational. It just doesn't seem.
Yeah, we're not asking them to do that. We're asking for them to put 2 seats on the board so that within the board it can be fixed, within the organization itself. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
Okay.
Yep, thanks for coming. And I do agree with Jim, we're happy to help with any legislative things that we can do. And I agree with what's been said, so I won't rehash, but the 2 points that I have are, I understand that you have a high school that needs to be upgraded or whatever, so do we. We did get money to build a new middle school. The message we got on the high school was no. So our high school is older than your high school. Our high school was built, I'm trying to remember, 30s, 50s, and 70s. Is that
I think there's
roughly,
is there a 1908 section?
maybe. So we're struggling to find a way to do $30 million worth of renovations just to solve some of the big problems. So you got to understand, money is tight. So if this project was passed right away and our hit was $1,150,000, that means we'd be cutting $700 to $750 from the schools and $350-ish from the town in the next budget cycle. So there's no magic money from our point of view. We don't see anything big on the horizon. There's housing being developed, but we don't have any land. We're not a Natick where they could put a mall in and solve our problem. So it's a really, really big money crunch from our point of view. And I don't see any good ways, and I don't think Jim does either, with how we would fund that. The fact that it's a few years away is nice, but we're just worried about when, on the town side, I don't think we're adding any new positions at the beginning of this budget year. The schools are really struggling to keep the positions they have and add on some of the mandated positions for special ed. So I just don't see any easy solution to coming up with that kind of money. So take that to heart. Just really think about, and Ben's been living it with the middle school, cutting, changing, finding a way to build it within the money that we've been allocated, and with construction costs going up. So that's what I would ask you to do, is really take a look at the money side of things and figure out if there's anything you can do there to reduce the costs, and let us get on board with trying to get more reimbursement out of the state, whether that be ARPA money or millionaire tax or whatever it may be. So
agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So I don't envy the task that you have ahead of you. I understand the situation you're in. I also understand the situation we're in. And there's a reality here, and those two realities have got to come together and strike some kind of balance. I do think there could be some, benefit to getting with the legislators and working through the state and seeing what we can do to creatively solve this, because I'm frankly fearful about how this might play out to the town of Walpole, and I don't want to see that happen. At the same time, I don't want to see you not able to deliver the education that you need to be delivering. So it's a real conundrum here that we've got to figure out. I think you've heard that you've got a lot of support on the board to go and pursue those alternative funding mechanisms. And of course, we want to stay close with you on this project as you go forward. One of the things, and you don't need to get into it now, but I'd be interested to hear what you're hearing from other towns as you continue to make this presentation around the 11 communities.
Yeah.
Okay?
This is what we're hearing?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm really not surprised.
No, I
So,
know.
yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay, well, again, thank you for being here tonight, and let's stay in touch.
All right, thank you. I'll give you these. You can. take-
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for your honesty and for your feedback, and we'll certainly relay that to our design and OPM team.
Thanks
Try to
very
cut
much.
some of these
Appreciate it.
costs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. Okay. All right, I'm going to move us on. We're way behind on our agenda, and that's not a problem. I think that was an important conversation to have. But we're going to move on to our 7:20 with Liz Gaffey, the town clerk. Liz is going to talk to us about the past election that we had in November and bring us up to speed on how that went and some thoughts she has. So Liz, it's all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, and good evening, all of you. So I'm going to give you the midterm election update. So the results of the November 2022 state federal election had a 62.7% turnout here in Walpole. We had 19,327 registered voters, and the total votes cast were 12,126. So how did we get to that number? The election process started in the town clerk's office in mid-July for both the staff and in August for some of my election workers. Many personal compromises were made to family and work-life balances by the staff, all giving the town of Walpole 100% when they came to work each and every day. At the end of the 192nd legislative session for Massachusetts, the legislators voted in the Votes Act. Many of the election changes that happened during the pandemic have now become the way elections are to run for the foreseeable future. The vote-by-mail postcards, which we hope are going to be one and done, have now become commonplace in the election process. Voting by mail is half of our voter turnout. The amount of manpower needed to accomplish this piece of the election process is quite an overwhelming feat for most, but we all carried it out one day at a time. This journey began with early vote by mail, then on to early vote in person, and then vote on election day. Seems easy enough when listed like that, but the work that those three tasks involve can be very overwhelming. The execution of the plans on the path to 2 successful elections in a very short period of time can be stressful and unforgiving with the expectation of nothing short of perfection. This is not only true for the September primary, where we have multiple ballots, but to do it all over again for the November midterm election. This was quite a 12-week stint for the office. Mailing of over 10,000 vote-by-mail and absentee ballots, and receiving back over 8,000 ballots. When the ballots are received back, we then needed to organize the ballots by precinct, by street and number, and then by your last name. Signatures needed to be checked on all 8,000 ballots and absentee ballots, a very time-consuming and daunting task to complete, not only for the primary, but for the general election as well. Many eyes are on the process as the voter is able to track their ballot online. The manpower hours needed to execute this, in addition to my regular staff, was over 200 hours for the election workers we hired and over 100 hours for 2 senior workers from the tax write-off program. Elections are an exciting time. There's lots going on in the clerk's office. Many a day we make plenty of noise moving the ballots, voter equipment, voting machines up and down the hallways in the town hall. Plenty of planning, organization, and an execution of a to-do list that doesn't quit and doesn't allow me any sleep at night or peace of mind for the 3 months while we're in the election process. Our lives take a back seat to the election process, and if that wasn't enough, the political climate of mistrust, constant confrontational, accusatory statements, questions that are asked of us that suggest we may compromise not only the integrity of our office, but that of the procedures and laws that they feel are not being followed properly. This is enough to bring the strongest of people to ask themselves why we do this job. But my staff and I carry on, knowing that we are providing the town of Walpole confidence, integrity, and order to the election process. It's sad to say we needed to have a police presence for early voting, early removal of ballots, and we could have used them for the testing of the voting equipment. These are events that take place for every election, and we never thought of needing security for them ever before. All the questions that were asked by them were answered, and not happy with that, more came after phone calls were made to others, presumably in their group, to come back at us again. They reported to us that they would be calling the state to make sure that we were doing everything right. We welcome that type of inquisition, as we know we have followed all the new election laws to the furthest possible extent. With all that negativity coming at us, still we persevered, coming in early, staying late, and working the weekends, working on both Labor Day and Veterans Day, so that Walpole could continue to feel confident in voting and that the election process would be done to the highest standard. I have been named Election Liz by my staff and all that work on the first floor at the town hall. Many would tell you they would not want to work in the town clerk's office. I am tough, have high expectations, and work very hard to run a very public event. My staff is driven, believe in the process, and are second to none, and are very appreciated by me. I am very lucky, and the town is very lucky to have them, as we couldn't be successful without them. Their loyalty and their work ethic to ensure a seamless election every time is remarkable. For this type of quality in my staff, this ensures that the town of Walpole is the winner. Elections truly take a village to run. My office is very thankful to the Building Maintenance Department, the Highway Department, and especially the Police Department. I thank the Select Board and Town Administration for believing in me, my staff, and the confidence that you have in the Town Clerk's office, especially the town election piece of my department. You have supported elections with the funding that is needed to be in place so that not only the midterm elections would run smoothly, but that all the elections will have the same quality and outcomes. For this, I can't thank you enough. Again, the results for the November elections, we had 19,327 voters, 12,126 votes were cast, and we had a 62.74% turnout. Thank you.
Liz, thank you for coming here tonight and sharing all of that with us. I have a couple of thoughts. Number one is I want to assure you that personally, I think you uphold the highest standards of integrity, and I have absolute confidence in your ability to run an election flawlessly. I know that it's hard to do that. I understand there's a lot of moving parts. I get it. But you have always demonstrated complete competence, and I have full faith in you and your staff to deliver an election for the town of Walpole that is, has integrity and that is run properly, and that gets the right result coming out. So I just want to make sure I express that in the strongest terms possible, and please convey that back to your staff and to all the volunteers. It is unfortunate that there are those who call into question the processes that we run. It's a fact of life, unfortunately, and frankly, it's something that, under the First Amendment, we encourage in our country, is this debate and so forth. So a certain amount of that is expected, and frankly is why we are who we are as a country. When it goes beyond productive question and answer, challenge, all of which are fine, I have no issue with that. When it goes beyond that, I do have an issue with it. And what I would say to you is, going forward, if we need to make sure that we have police presence from start to finish, for anything that you need, all you need to do is tell us that, and I assure you that will happen. And the attacks that you had to go through, in my mind, were just unwarranted and unconscionable. And given that you and your staff do what you do under those circumstances is admirable. The fact that we've got a bunch of volunteers, nobody's getting paid in those volunteer groups to come in and do the things that you do, and to have to endure some of the nonsense that you had to endure, again, is unconscionable. So I would just simply ask you to think about how do we prevent that from happening in the future, all the while recognizing people's, right to speak their mind. It's not about that. It's about interfering with the process. That's not right. And so I would ask you to give that some thought. I think you guys did a great job. You had two big, tough elections back-to-back in September and November. I think you did a fantastic job on it, and I think you should be very proud of your staff, and I think the volunteers should be very proud of what they did as well. And I personally thank you for, the work you do, not only in our elections, but everything you do in the town clerk's office. You guys do a fantastic job. So thank you, Liz.
Thank you. Yep,
Be opening up.
and we had the town meeting in between those two.
Oh,
you
of
know?
course, yep.
So it doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop.
Right, and
No.
the police department was awesome. They stayed. I said I needed somebody here for after early voting at 12. They were here, and then when they had seen other things going on, they said, we're just going to stop in and help you out. And that, without, even saying, how are we going to do that? They just did it. And that really, for me, felt very supported, and I know that if I had brought it up, I know Jim would have made sure that that has happened. Jim has actually used his cell phone to have them come for me when the line is way down the hall and we've closed.
Good.
They've always all stepped up, which is why I thank you for your support, seriously.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Liz. Other board members, comments? Ben?
Yeah, and I just wanted to highlight one thing you said, Liz. I really appreciate you coming in and talking about this with us. But, us as a board, we're constantly trying to make voting more accessible, and we talk about that with you all the time, and longer hours and, other things that are available to us. Voting by mail is one example you gave. But to hear, I think it's important, people really appreciate that, and they use it and they enjoy it, just general residents. But I think it's important that they realize how much time and effort then goes into that. I mean, you mentioned hundreds and hundreds of hours then, because mailing voting wasn't a one and done. It's a thing now that's apparently going to be with us, and half the voters that cast a vote use it. And so, I think it's important. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, and I want to make sure that residents know that, that doesn't just happen, right? There's a lot of
It
hard
doesn't.
work,
That's
a lot
right.
of effort that goes into it, and so certainly, for myself as well, I'm thankful that you all have been able to do that and the effort that you put into it. So thank you.
Thanks, Ben. Mark?
Yeah, I would just jump onto what Ben said. I think you guys have done a great job through the election. And, I'm just sort of thinking ahead, come and let us know what we can do to help. One of the things, I understand the burden that mail-in voting places on the office, but on the other hand, it does get people to vote. So I think that is a good thing. I'm always appalled when, especially on some of the smaller elections, the turnout is in the teens. It's like, why didn't people jump on board and vote? So, maybe that needs a process change internally, maybe need a little more money for an extra group of people to do the mail, whatever it may be, give that some thought going forward. And, I know I'd be very supportive of kind of anything that you could do process-wise to take the burden off a very small number of people and spread it out a little bit. So, just let us know what we can do, so,
I will, thank you.
sure.
Thanks, Mark. Glenn?
Sure. I mean, I think it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways, and it's the recurring theme here from the other members, that you do a great job, and we have your back, and let us know what you need, and you'll get it. And elections of the highest integrity is the goal, and I think we're doing that in Walpole, and we'll keep doing it going forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Ally?
I just thank you for everything you do. That was a wonderful kind of update for us. Certainly a little bit of eye-opening of the stress that has been put on the town's clerk office, reiterating what the support that the select board can do. And as a voter in town, I always feel like it is a smooth running machine and very efficient, and we appreciate it.
Thank you. Yep, there's a lot of work into that, and I'm glad that it should be seamless. And that's exactly what I like to hear, is that you guys don't realize how much we do to get you where we're going, and we do it, and we come in every day to do it.
Jim.
So, yeah, the next fiscal year is supposed to be kind of a slowish kind of year, but it's not looking that way. We're going to have the regular town elections on there. We're going to have the federal presidential primary election on there, right, Liz? We're also going to have the Tri-County vote on
Tri-County.
there. So she's going to be in for another busy year ahead, definitely. And we're budgeting accordingly. We're planning kind of for the worst budget-wise, staffing needs and everything. So I think for the most part, I level funded your budget as on
Yeah.
what you requested. So.
Let us know what you need, and just know you have our full support. So as always, and again, thank you to you and your staff. Great work.
Thank you, and I will let them know, and I'm sure they're watching, but thank you. So I will tell them, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Liz.
Thanks.
All right, next up, Walpole Police Department, we have a candidate to appoint to police officer, and then we've got some discussion on departmental rules and regs. So Chief Kelleher, I will turn it over to you, and let's go through the officer appointment.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. Briefly, I'd also like to share my condolences to Mr. Snuffer and his family. He's been a staunch supporter of us and of me personally. So when I heard of his passing this morning, I was sad. And so to reiterate what you had said earlier, he's certainly a fixture in Walpole, and he will be missed. So my condolences to his family as well. So shifting gears, we have a candidate before you tonight for a position of police officer. His name is Matthew Shaw, native of North Attleboro, graduated from Bishop Feion High School in 2016. And he wanted to attend the University of Maryland, where he's currently working on his bachelor's degree in criminal justice and should be done in the very near future. He moved to Walpole in 2019 from North Attleboro. His mom works in the schools, I believe, and he works currently at a family-owned business called Commercial Gear and Sprocket, which is in Walpole as well, and he's working as a machinist. What kind of opened our eyes to him was his community service. In 2016, he completed all the requirements to become an Eagle Scout, which obviously is quite an achievement. It shows a lot of dedication to community service. It took him over 8 years to reach that goal. And throughout his interview process, he really highlighted his understanding of community engagement, giving back to the community and service. And so we really think he'll be a good fit for us. So without further ado, Matt?
Thanks, Chief. Good evening, Matt, and welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to see you here. If you just wouldn't mind telling us just a little bit about yourself, and then we'll let the board ask whatever questions they might have or offer whatever comments they have. We'll go from there, okay?
Yeah, of course. As the chief said, I grew up in North Attleboro, recently moved to Walpole. My family, actually, I would be the third generation of employee by the town of Walpole. My grandparents work for the school system. My mother, who's actually here tonight, works for the school system. So I'd really take a lot of pride in being that third generation of employee by the town of Walpole, doing what I want to do, which is being a police officer. Something that I've wanted to do since I was in high school. So I went to the University of Maryland to study criminal justice, and why I'm applying here first and foremost now.
Well, your resume speaks for itself, and we're very pleased to have you become a member of the team here in Walpole. And as I said to you earlier, we look forward to working with you. So congratulations. Let me open it up to the rest of the board for questions or comments. Mark?
Yeah, I would just say welcome aboard. Glad to have you. I think you're going to fit in really well here with the police department, community policing, and all those kind of things. So good luck once you get on board.
Thank you.
Ben?
Just congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. Being a police officer is certainly a calling, but being a police officer in Walpole is even more of a calling, so we're happy to have you here. And did you finish your credits yet for your bachelor's degree?
Not yet. I'm in the process of finishing them, so COVID kind of threw me off a
I'm
little
sure
bit.
you will, but we encourage you, whatever we can do to help, talk to the chief behind you, and we want to help make it happen.
Perfect. Thank you
All right.
very much.
Great, thanks.
And
Ally?
congratulations, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, Ally?
Motion to appoint candidate Matthew Shaw to the position of police officer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So next we have our rules and regulations that have been updated recently as we head into the accreditation process. So if you'd like, would you like me to go through some of the changes, or how would you?
I think if you would broadly characterize them, just so that people in the room and who are watching understand the changes.
Sure.
But I don't think there's a need to go a deep dive on it. We've all read them, and I think most of us have given you feedback on them, too. Okay? Thanks.
So throughout the document, previously it had only illustrated that, or it stated that officers would be covered by these rules and regulations. Now, we've encompassed it to cover all employees. This went from to both unions, the dispatch union and patrol officers association. They're both on board with the changes, so we really had no issues there. Essentially, we added some statutory language in terms of filing false claims for overtime, which obviously we never condone, but now we're going to explicitly state it. Proper treatment of detainees. This is all directly from police reform. We added statutory language directly in to the manual. How we distribute our directives, again, a housekeeping issue. We do it electronically now. We just wanted to update it so that way, it would be current with what we actually do. With hairstyles, we added language to cover the Crown Act, which obviously prohibits discrimination against protected hairstyles. So we wanted to make sure that, even though that's something we would ever do, it explicitly states it in our rules and regs. So we wanted to be in compliance with that. Tattoo policy, we had always said we had changed it in 2018 to have no visible tattoos. Given that they're so mainstream now, we had thought that we didn't want to lose a good candidate because they may have a tattoo that you could see. So we thought that it would only make sense to kind of loosen that a little bit to make sure we get the best possible candidate to work here, regardless of a tattoo. Obviously, those that are prohibited, that would be offensive and things of that nature are still not allowed, obviously. We basically just loosened that a little bit to make sure we're not missing out on a good person because of a tattoo. Essentially, those are the changes in a nutshell. Again, it was just more to bring things up to speed. We're working towards accreditation now, so we wanted to get statutory language from police reform as well as some of the housekeeping stuff updated and make sure we were current. So,
Great. Thanks,
that is
Chief.
in a nutshell.
Okay. Any questions for the chief? Nope. Ally?
Motion to approve the updated police department rules and regulations.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500. Chief, thanks very much.
Thank you all.
Appreciate
Appreciate
Thank
you having us. Thank you.
All right, next, we have the 300th Anniversary Committee update coming, and I think is Bill? I see Bill. Yeah, Bill, you'll talk to us.
Please do.
Okay, and Katie Turco and Judy Conroy as well, so welcome.
I have my clipboard, so I'm in business.
Yeah, I can tell. That's good.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. I came for the Tri-County. I stayed for the 300th anniversary committee, which is a wonderful celebration of the story of Walpole, just like we saw before us, the Shaw family and Burke and their extended family's story of being here in town. So as you requested, a number of updates. I think we're going to be coming before you fairly regularly, perhaps every other month, for a very quick update. I did give to Chairman O'Neill a budget, which I believe was the central request of the Select Board, to be apprised of how we're doing. I will decline to tell you exactly how much fundraising we have achieved, as we plan in the next 45 days to really reach out to the large both employers and financial institutions within town. But I can say we buoyed by this board, the Finance Committee and town meetings, initial appropriations as well as a legislative earmark for the process. We're off to a very good start. We've also in our planning, as you can see, looked at the gala, and that number we are hoping will be self-funded, so we're holding a budget item there, but that should come right back to us. We also have quadrupled the amount that was budgeted for a community gift from 50 years ago. And with that, we hope to utilize that as perhaps a contingency, but in general, this budget is exceedingly conservative, again, we hope. So again, another quick update on timeline of events. We're hoping to begin this December, on the weekend of the 16th, 2023, 1 year out, with a laser show down here in this area, much like the night before the 4th. We've had good conversations with the same vendor that does our annual fireworks display. In the spring, we hope to do both an art show in conjunction with Walpole High School and open up a time capsule, which is somewhere in the front lawn here. We do not know exactly where, but we trust we have a year to figure that out. Okay. For the independence celebrations, we do not want to supplant
the good work and tradition, which is so important to Walpole, which is the 3rd of July fireworks, but we would like to supplement and increase for that 1 year the fireworks display there. And committee member Smith is obviously working closely on that. In the fall, a parade and a country fair. In November, a gala on November 2nd. The date is locked in, the place is locked in, and the contract is signed. Again, we hope that event, which will be a very formal affair and in the same place it was, on 275th and 250th, will be self-funded, so that will go off, be a budgetary wash. And in December 10th, our final event, we would like a luminary event on the town common, which perhaps, if you think, would be similar to Norwood Circle of Hope. We're continuing to form that. We've been working closely with some South Walpole friends, as you may know, the folks on Independence, in Symphony Park, do luminaries on Christmas Eve every year. So we're trying to not reinvent the wheel again. So what is next? As I said, we're going to be engaging the big fish in town within the next 45 days to really lock down, hopefully, large ticket donations. If anyone perhaps has any connection to large financial institutions that are philanthropic, perhaps they just retired from one, we would love to talk with you afterwards. But no pressure, right, Bill? No pressure at all. I do have their number for Norwood, though. At any rate, we are about to launch a website. We're working closely with a committee member, Val Bishop, who is an excellent graphic designer, and some of the material she has produced in draft form for our fundraising looks phenomenal. And other communities that have done anniversaries have spent a lot of money on that side of things, and she is doing that for nothing, which is a really wonderful volunteer service that she is bringing to our community to really make us look legit, as it were. So we hope in the spring to launch a website as well that will have a greater calendar of events, a big thermometer for fundraising as well. We're grateful for the partnership of Administrator Johnson, Pat Shield, and obviously our direct staff contact, Brendan at the rec department, who's been exceedingly helpful. I think his staff, especially with some of these large community events, there's going to be a lot of, especially around a country fair, there'll be a lot of rec support there. So as we move forward, we're looking to continue to drill down on the specifics. We have hopefully a meeting in the next couple of weeks with the folks who run the Thanksgiving Day Parade in Plymouth. So again, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but we're hoping to steal as much as we can to make this a really enjoyable community event. We're also looking at ways to, in the next few months, especially into the spring, we'll really begin to ratchet up the community partnerships as well. We've had some good discussions even this morning about some of the beautification things that some of the already existing folks in town. There's also other anniversaries that coincide with this. It's the 100th anniversary of the Footlighters, and it's also the 150th anniversary of Walpole High School. And Judy was there at the inception, so she's going to be the liaison for us as well. But we hope that the public schools will have a really strong presence in this, along with, for example, the time capsule piece, where there are still individuals like Judy who put things into that time capsule 50 years ago, and we hope that they can join us for a small event, and hope that the children of Walpole this year, as many as possible in the next few years, participate in the next 50 years of a time capsule as well. So a lot of exciting things. We also, as we launch our website, we'll be open to ideas. As if there are other community groups, there's so many wonderful volunteers in Walpole who give so much already, but there's also so many folks with groups and ideas, and we want to make this something that can be easily augmented by the other things we do as a community, like a first day hike, for example, or things of that nature. So with that, happy to answer any questions. Well, Bill, thank you for coming tonight and providing this update. And you've made a lot of progress on this since the last time we talked, and really appreciate the good work that you and the committee. Life, is there any way that anything that anything you need?
So I'd say
Come on.
we don't need it right now, but we're going to need a lot of help.
Yeah.
As far as manpower, and we want all ages to participate. We want it to be truly the whole community.
Yep.
So thank you for the offer, and we'll definitely take you up on it. We don't need it right now, but we're definitely going to need it.
Yeah, please let us know, and, we're happy to help in any way. I mean, this is going to be a very big event, and, you only get to celebrate the 300th once, and this is going to be a good one, and plus, we probably need a bunch of people to go find that time capsule. So,
Unless Judy knows where it is.
we'll get Rick Mattson out there with a backhoe, and we'll find it.
Someone said the water meter, look finder.
Yeah,
Go
yeah.
very deep, so they're gonna
Yeah.
try to use that.
Well, I think,
Ideally during the workday, so we don't have to pay for overtime, but.
We'll take it out of your budget.
any questions from the board for any of the members of the 300th committee? Comments?
This is very exciting, a good long list of, it's going to be a good year. Did you say the time capsule? I just want to talk about the time capsule. We can just talk about that all night, but how old is that? Is it 50
It's 50
years?
years old. So Mr. Powers, who many of you know is a longtime teacher in Walpole, what was it, probably his first year when he was there?
Oh, no, he was here before that.
Oh my gosh, he was really old. So early in his career in Walpole Public Schools, he used the Walpole 250th as an opportunity to have a number of his students at this school, which was a school at the time, create a time capsule, and they buried it outside. So we've been dialoguing with the Historical Commission. From the pictures, it looks like a plastic tub.
Mike can't remember, so.
And Mike can't remember exactly where it
Plastic
is.
tub.
He claims they moved the flagpole. So,
But the new time capsule will not be a plastic tub, I assume.
we did price it out. It's about $1,000 for
Okay.
a
Well,
really
let's do it right. and,
good time capsule. But
50 years
hopefully,
from now, they'll appreciate it.
hopefully it can be something where we can try to find as many people who participated in the the last one, get a new crop of community members, and I'm sure this board would like to contribute something as well, and then maybe have refreshments on the lawn, and the Historical Society, we will give what was in there to them, and perhaps we can, we want to do it in the spring so that there could be some sort of display for folks to see the types of things we put in and the types of things we've taken out.
Makes sense. Sounds fun. Thank you.
Well, we've got a lot of budget that we've set aside, so money shouldn't be getting in the way of getting this underway. So again, just let us know what you need. You got all the support in the world right here. Okay?
I think it's productive for us to come back every couple of months to see if you
That'd be
put
great.
status updates like this.
Yeah, that'd be terrific, Bill.
But we're very grateful for all the help, especially your administration team has given us thus far.
Terrific.
Hey, could I just say, I do love the variety of events you have planned. I think it's great for different ages and groups.
Oh, yeah, very fair. I'm sorry, we did forget one, so we just wanted to, we were also looking into a senior sort of prom and gala as well. To your point about trying to make sure there's stuff for children, stuff for those of us who have been here a long time, stuff for people who've been here a very long time, but we know that the formal gala is something that many of us here in this room will go to, but it may be cost prohibitive, and just as with the Friends of St. Patrick, there used to be a senior breakfast beforehand, we hope that it might be something like this. We haven't priced that out yet, but it's really gonna depend on the gala cost. But
Terrific.
should be fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks again.
Yep, thanks.
See you guys in a couple of months.
Take care, we'll see
Thank you. Bye. All right, open forum is next on the agenda. Anyone here for open forum? Don't see anybody, so let's keep on moving to the consent agenda. Ally?
Motion to accept with gratitude the following donation. Multiple donors to Smile Eyes Financial. Patty Feely in memory of Ronald Traineth Sr. to COA Gifts. Olga Church in memory of Ronald Traineth Sr. to COA Gifts. Sheila Unico in memory of Ronald Traineth Sr. to COA Gifts. Carolyn Ferris to COA Gifts. Rita Ziba in memory of Madeline Taylor to COA Gifts. Rosemary Doherty to COA Gifts. Anna Fleet in memory of Madeline Taylor to COA Gifts. The Peterson family in memory of John Peterson to COA Gifts.
Seconded with gratitude.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
500. Jim, Town Administrator's update.
Sure, I got just a couple things here. Budget update, the budget is just about ready to go. We've met with school officials multiple times. I think we reached a point where they're satisfied with the number we're ready to go with for them. And I'm in the process of just finalizing the budget message, which will be recorded and posted on Walpole Media Corp. sometime after February 6th. It's due by the 6th, so it'll be exactly that date. Middle school, just Bennett mentioned briefly, the Middle School Building Committee voted tonight to authorize the town administrator to issue an authorization to proceed letter to Fontaine Brothers for the middle school project based on the bid results and on the condition that the guaranteed max price doesn't exceed $92,982,450. And they're going to meet on 2/14 to review the final number we come up with. So the OPM noted at the meeting just tonight that this is the first MSBA project in some time that's come below or at the allotted budget amount. Most projects have come in millions and millions of dollars over, some in the tens of millions. The school building committee, the OPM, the project team have all done a great job in this all along the way, working together. I'm glad we bid it out as a construction manager at risk. Ben, do you have anything to add, or?
No, I think you covered it. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
The FinCom, I'm working with the chairman to finalize the schedule for the finance committee. I expect that they'll start to meet on February 13th. That's a Monday. The school department's already confirmed for February 16th, so we're going to get right into town budgets the first night and move on to the school budget the second night with them. Warrant articles, we have currently 31 warrant articles that after Aoife and I have gone through everything, we're set to send that off to town council for review. 2 items of note: the in-law bylaw. The board provided some comment at the last meeting, some feedback. We've incorporated that feedback into the bylaw. As it stands now, the planning board has received all 9 zoning board bylaw article changes, so that's in their hands. They have to schedule the hearing and everything, and I'm trying to do this far enough in advance so the FinCom can meet with can attend the public hearing and then meet with the planning board to review each of those bylaw changes. One other item is there's an article on there for the surplus sale of 3 parcels in Walpole. One's the East Walpole Library. One's a lot at the intersection of Kingsbury Street and Plain Street. The final property that's on there as a draft is the Old Town Hall. So all 3 of these sites are on one article, and I'd like some direction and guidance from the board as to, are you comfortable with this as one single article? I know Town Hall, I'm expecting, will garner a lot of discussion and debate. We are set to meet with the consultant we hired later on in February to hear his findings. He's meeting with the EDC, some small business owners, some property owners, and interested parties, I believe this coming Thursday night. Is that right, Pat? Or is that next Thursday night? The last Thursday, I'm sorry, to get some feedback from them. So he'll have a final report to present to the board. So are you comfortable with leaving it as is for now?
Speaking for myself, I'm comfortable with that because it's my understanding that we can size the article down.
Yes.
Which is to say, if there was sufficient debate, let's say about the town hall, that we felt it necessary to pull that from the motion.
You can.
We can do that and not run into any difficulty. So I think it's okay to leave them all together unless someone can come up with a reason that we ought to separate them out. Thoughts, board?
Would that be a substitute motion, or how do you size it down?
So you could do 2 things. You could do a substitute motion to break it out into either 3 separate items, or, if you're comfortable with the Kingsbury Street lot and East Walpole, keep them as 2, and then separate the Old Town meeting as 1. Or if the FinCom was that concerned, their main motion could just simply say Kingsbury and East Walpole.
Got it.
I'm assuming East Walpole won't be too controversial because we do have the building facilities report that's very, 6-8 months old, not too old. We know what the deficiencies are at that building. It's underutilized. It'd make a great single-family lot in East Walpole, kind of perfect setting. So I don't think Kingsbury and East Walpole will get a lot of debate, but I do think Old Town Hall.
Yeah, so the debate can still happen, and based on what the debate is and how it transpires, we can decide how to proceed and vote 1 or 2 or all 3 together. So it shouldn't impact, I guess what I'm hearing is it shouldn't impact that debate.
That's my thought too, Glenn.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, so
Sounds good.
You just leave it as 1, and if we have to separate it out, we separate it out.
Okay. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Good, okay. Any questions for Jim before we adjourn? Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
5-0-0. We're now adjourned. Patrick, thank you for your help with Walpole Media, and good night, everyone.